What is going on, Internet? Eric Bandel's back again with another e-commerce conversations. I hope all is well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, Phillip. What's up, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I was looking, we last recorded in early 2024, so it's coming up on 2 years since you've been on here.
Time flies.
Has it been the best 2 years of your life? Did I miss out on?
I really actually has. When I first talked to you a couple years into, full-time and building this business. And as I've been telling people, it's like, I feel like I'm made for this. It's like I'm deploying everything I've ever learned in my whole life into this business. I mean, sometimes it's sort of, in Future Commerce, we are a media company, and I like to say we explore, the culture of commerce. And we do that through, newsletters, podcasts, insights, research events, all the stuff you might expect. But, sometimes you can get the ick. It's like I'm part of the attention economy. But everything that I do, I just love. And so it has been like the best 2 years of my life. I'm feeling very fulfilled in my work. I haven't always been able to say that. So
Yeah, well, I can relate. What drew you into e-com?
Oh, well, I started in 99. So I used to say I've been in e-com for 22 years. I think that might be outdated at this point.
Quarter
But
century now.
yeah, my gosh, dude. I was building e-commerce in the old days when it was super hard. I spent 10 years plus brand side, and I worked for a lot of vertically integrated brands. Back when it was, I don't know, I forget what we were using back in the day. It was, Hotjar and Google Ads, and I forget, we were hand coding everything with HTML. And we scaled a bunch of brands to 10 million plus that way, especially in the natural product space. That was really big in Florida. I'm a Florida guy. But I think that was like the greatest gift I ever had, was working for early stage companies, did everything in house. I built engineering teams. I was a software developer, and I sat between, the PPC team, the QA team. I sat next to, on the other side of the fulfillment house, right? And I'd get pulled in to help fulfill orders on the weekends. Like, you don't get any better visibility into actually how it works. And I feel like that's the greatest lesson you can learn. I did that for almost 10 years. The last brand I worked for exited to GNC, and I sort of thought to myself, I'm hiring all these agencies to do all this work for us at the time. It's like 2012-ish. And I feel like I was paying them to learn how to do the job. I was teaching them how to do the job. And I thought, man, it'd be really great to actually go help an agency to scale an e-commerce practice. And in about 2012, I went and did that. And by 2020, I helped take an agency from 3 people in its e-commerce practice to about 120. And we sold that agency in 2020. Yeah, it's been a long, long journey. And along the way, somewhere I started, this media business, and the rest is history. Here we are. But I could tell you how much I love e-commerce. I could tell you all this stuff, but like, it's been 5 epochs in e-commerce since. Like, nothing is the same as it ever was.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's kind of interesting about, your perspective and role is like, as an operator myself, like I get in the weeds. So I see what's going on with Beard Brand and what we're facing, but I don't have more of a, like an industry wide perspective. Like what's going on in e-com? Like it almost, I'll first say, from my feeling, and maybe this is just part of being in business for so long, it kind of just feels bland and boring. Like it's, there's nothing really exciting. There's nothing really new. There's nothing really changing, especially compared to everything that we went through with COVID and then the tariffs. It just kind of seems like ho hum right now.
You're not wrong. I've been talking about this since, 2019 maybe, is that we sort of reached the platonic ideal of the website, right? Like we optimized it to death, and now all we have is boring, right? Like I did some research. So a lot of what we do at Future Commerce is consumer and business leader research. And we published some research. I believe it came out in 21 or 22. We spent a lot of time on it. We did this thing where we took like 15 of the top websites in the world. We held out things like Amazon, but you took things like, I don't know, Bath and Body Works, or at the time, or Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know, a lot of high traffic sites, and you take off the head navigation and the logo, and the general consumer just could not tell any distinctiveness from one site to the next because they're all functionally identical. And that's because we've optimized the experience. And I think there's a lot of power in that. But there's a lot of downside too, because it's fundamentally unmemorable and it's very slippery. It's optimized for conversion. It's not optimized for memorability. I have a lot to say about that. I'll come back to the e-commerce thing in just a second. Like, you see this in all over culture right now. Netflix is a really good example. Netflix is probably one of the greatest data stores of human attention in the world. They have a phenomenal data science team. They publish a lot of insights. And Netflix has figured out how to get people to finish shows and how to get people to finish series. And they have good reason to drop things in a binge format. Like, drop a season all at once. And I would believe that they have data that tells you that if they drop a show all at once, all on the same day, that more people make it to the very end of a series than not. And they've done it both ways, and they've done it now for 15 years. But what they miss that the data doesn't tell you is that when you drip a show out, maybe not everybody makes it to the end, but when you drip a show out over the course of 6, 8, 10, 15 weeks, it sits around in the conversation and the culture. And we lose something that the data never tells you. And the same thing happens in everything. It happens in websites, and we've reached platonic ideals all over the place. Crossover SUVs all have the same silhouette. We have electronic toothbrushes that all look the same. Your smartphone is just the same glass brick as everybody else's. And we sort of reach these platonic ideals, and we say, it's good enough. We don't need to innovate anymore. And so, e-com is boring. And I think there's a lot of people out there, especially in the enterprise space, who are like, maybe AI makes e-com great again. But I don't know that there is a lot of willingness. I think it takes some willingness to innovate, and innovation takes risk. And nobody wants risk, because risk requires potential downside. And that's where we are. So.
Yeah, I feel like one of the advantage as a small operator is that willingness to kind of take those bigger bets.
Mm-hmm.
And, one brand that really comes to mind for me is Pit Viper. I don't know if
I know, the glasses, yeah.
I remember the first time I went to their website, I'm like, is this website for real?
Is this for real?
It was like back when I first saw it, it was like this 1990s themed, like flashing GIFs and all sorts of just like retro nostalgic feeling. And of course, I know Pit Viper had an incredible run. I don't know if they're still running or not, or if that's also one of the risks and going that is you may kind of play a fad. Another company, Vacation Inc.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or vacation.com or I think it's vacation.inc. They're like a tanning oil or sunscreen company.
Yeah.
I highly recommend you guys check them out. Similar thing, it has like this, the brand and the website like all kind of come together to just hit you in the feels is what it feels like. It just feels like, yes, like this is interesting. Like this has purpose. This isn't just another product on the shelf and I don't know if it's good or not, but I'm certainly more interested in, that kind of product where they take those kind of risks.
What's interesting about Vacation is, Marty Bell, who built something before it called Poolside FM, which was like a streaming music service that had DJs that they hired that, basically DJ'd 24 hours a day for many years. It was like Lo-Fi Girl before Lo-Fi Girl was Lo-Fi Girl. And, Marty, as a creative director, spent many years just doing things that very few other people do in this world. The reason things like Poolside or Pool Suite and Vacation felt so genuine and actually shaped a bunch of brands that came after it was because Marty was the kind of guy who collected vintage stamps and collected vintage magazines and had the like vintage ads in his, hung up that had the vintage Lamborghinis on it and the Porsches. Like, he was the guy who was looking at that ephemera for 20 years before the brand came around. He lived and breathed that aesthetic. It wasn't a copycat thing. And I think that's what, when you see something like a Pit Viper, you see something like a Vacation, there's something different and something, again, it's something, I tend to over spiritualize brands, but that's my thing. There is something, an X factor, something subtextual that you can feel, right? And I think that's, we're all, I, I'm tuning in on this, Eric, with a bunch of executives right now, is can AI deliver a lot of efficiency for us and productivity in our business? And uh, in the same way that we talked about, you can sort of send, what a Shopify site looks like when you see it. You know what a Shopify template looks like when you see it. You know what, there's just a sense about it. You've seen all of them. You know what the themes look like. You know what Dawn theme is. There's, I believe, a coming time where we have a sense and a feeling that something is AI. We're building this higher level abstraction, like it wasn't created by a human who has tastes and likes and dislikes, and they've created something of their own, it's birthed out of their own desire to create something in the world. And so that's where I think I'm a little bit dubious to your point on, the ones that stand out, the ones that we talk about, the ones that are memorable, a little dubious onto like, can we, is the AI future the thing that's going to save e-commerce and make everything personal and everything, one for one? But anyway, answering a question you didn't ask, but I think that's an interesting thing that people keep talking about.
Yeah, it's I think it just hit the news. ChatGPT admitted that they're or announced that they're rolling out ads for
Yeah.
ChatGPT, and so it's just a matter of time before we have another channel
Yeah.
to target our customers, and it will be a kind of a blue ocean there. See who can capture that market share quickly. I think that's quite interesting direction to go. The more relevant and personalized product recommendations come from people, but you lose a little bit of that authenticity when it goes from organic to ads. But even like
So if I could,
speaking of,
I don't want to cut
ahead.
in, but just to cut in right there, that is something that we do. We have we partnered with Fairing, who does, post-purchase surveys and work with like the top 5,000 Shopify stores. And on futurecommerce.com, we have this thing called the word of mouth index with Fairing. And every month we refresh it. And the greatest predictor of positive brand behaviors is always word of mouth. The survey by default asks you, where did you hear about the brand? And this is coming post-purchase. And word of mouth trends with purchase volume, but it also trends along with things like propensity to convert to a subscription, the likelihood of someone keeping a product instead of returning it. Like all the positive indicators of the things you want out of a customer are also positively correlated with word of mouth. And so it kind of comes down to building a great product and a great brand sort of solves a bunch of problems in a company, because other people talk about it and you trust those people. It doesn't necessarily just come from ChatGPT, which you may or may not trust. It comes from other people who you may or may not trust.
Yeah, it's word of mouth is the most economical way to grow a business, and if you want to scale a business profitably, having a very strong word of mouth is the way to do that. I think the other thing is part of that is taking the risk and really understanding your core values, your mission, what you're trying to do to resonate and connect with those individuals. It's our industry has gotten so competitive over the past 10 years that if we're not taking a stand and we try to be the the beard care for everybody, then frankly it's going to be a hamster wheel, one customer on, one customer off as we get exposure to it. So it's kind of a, yeah, I think it's, I'm just speaking from my own experience. Like Beard Brand kind of got away from our brand and our core values and, just speaking about why we exist. And I feel like it's just gotten harder for us. Like the less we do that, the more challenging things become.
Yeah, I get that. When you're, I'm curious what you think where things are heading. If e-commerce is quote unquote boring, what is exciting, and where does that excitement go to, right? Because I think other things are boring too, but they're utility and they're useful, right? for the most part. I think most gas stations are boring and grocery stores are boring for the most part. Some grocery stores are not, but you pay that premium for it. E-commerce, I think, can probably be boring, and that's okay. But what's not
Yeah.
boring, and what do you think is interesting?
Well, I mean, I would say like within the industry, like moving to new channels like TikTok shops, I think is
Right.
kind of like a really interesting, like, will they disrupt, will websites go away? Is everything just going to consolidate on Meta and TikTok and Amazon and Walmart marketplaces, or is there going to be a place for our own website and dealing
Mm-hmm.
directly with our customer? Or are we in the commoditization of everything? The commoditization of products and shopping experience. I sure hope not. I think as long as there's independent creators who do it for the love of the game instead of the love of the money, I think you'll find that there's a Shopify to me is a huge inspiration. They roll out
Mm-hmm.
a I don't know, they rolled out some kind of like update thing, and you go to the website, and the website has like these 3D things you're moving around like
Yeah.
in front of to behind
Yep.
like the sales desk, and it's like, man, like, what if I put that kind of energy and effort into my PDP and my landing page, or for my fragrance, for example.
Yeah.
Would I really be able to, build that connection with my customers that we are different. We're not just another liquid in a bottle. Um, and how do I even get that done? Like Shopify as a small operator, I see it, and of course, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They have far more resources. Like, is that even accessible to a small brand? Or what kind of investment would it be to build out a landing page like they have, where you just wow the visitor?
The wow factor is real. I actually I have a lot to address in what you just talked about because I have some data around it, and in our research, there's, um, will the website go away? On the concrete side, the website's here right now, and at least for right now, ads might disrupt the platform. Uh, Gen AI or LLMs or AEO, GEO, whatever the heck we're calling it right now, seems to be a pretty relied upon source of traffic from many consumers, especially Gen Z, to find new trusted brands and new product recommendations. We did a piece of research um, uh, with around AI usage before and after holiday 2025, and you could get it at futurecommerce.com/holiday AI report. But there was this really, it's free. You don't even have to put your email in. Just go look at it. But there's this whole behavioral modality around Gen Z, and then it sort of trickles off by generation millennials and Gen X, of people's trust based on the recommendation from AI. And it is more evident now than ever that when AI makes the recommendation, they don't want to purchase in the platform. They don't want to use the tools in the platform to make the purchase. They want to click through to the website that was recommended. And 77% of people in our study, in 2 different studies in 2 different cohorts across 2 months, said the same thing both times. 77% dead even both times, 2 different groups of people. And, English speaking nations all over the earth, New Zealand, Canada, England, United States, they all said unanimously, I would rather go to the website. So that to me is a pretty interesting, narrative, considering that I keep hearing that agents are going to buy everything for us. And I'm pretty bullish on agents. I think that's cool, but I'm an early adopter of things. On the other side, what I am seeing is 35% of Gen Z says they're more likely to buy a recommendation from something like ChatGPT online than go to the store. 40% of Gen X. And I think we're trying to, we may actually see physical retail has more of an impact from, the nature of AI than the digital retail and the website for right now, because the website is where we get all of our information and context for the generative engines. Okay, so put that to the side for 1 second. will the website go away eventually? I have to believe, if you just look at other facets of culture, the old and the new always coexist. I take my kids and my family to the UK. Most summers we have family there, and we spend a few weeks there in the summer. And you can get off the tube stop at Shepherd's Bush, and there's a huge Westfield. It's the biggest mall in like all of the UK. The huge Westfield mall. But when you get off of the tube, when you walk down the stairs, it's the oldest outdoor market in all of England, is called Shepherd's Bush Market. And you will walk through that market before you get to Westfield. The old and the new always coexist. That old market is still there. Papua New Guinea, we still have hunter-gatherers on Earth. There's not many of them. They're still here. And so the old and the new always coexist. And I feel like that, will anything ever truly go all the way away? I don't know. But I do think that they will always be here to some degree. And we have survivorship bias and all sorts of things. It's like, they made things better 60 years ago. No, not really. It's the stuff that survived that's still around, and that stuff was made really well. So, I think we'll probably have similar effects later on as the sites and the brands that had durable products, goods, services, brands, brand messaging, customers, all the rest. They're the ones that will survive all the way through. They'll probably have websites. All the rest, I think, is up for grabs and debate. But that's sort of my soapbox. And I do have some data that I think goes deep into the will they, won't they with AI. I'll send you a link. But
if you're an operator, let's say you're new into the e-com game, you don't have a lot of legacy baggage holding you back. What is your strategy going to be to prepare you for the next 5 years?
So right now, just given what I'm seeing in the amount of people that are turning to engines like ChatGPT for recommendations, I can't imagine that you're not making some sort of GEO, AEO investment. That seems like a absolute necessity. If you're not tracking it, you should be tracking it and just seeing how often you come up in ChatGPT, at least, in some sort of product recommendation. So that is, I think, that's a requirement, I think, for most brands. Now, it's the only true source of organic I think we have left. It's like, and that's pretty new, actually. That being said, all the other stuff to me is feeling sort of they're not living up to the true disruptive qualities that we all said that they would. I think things are new channels and they're complementary, like every new channel. TikTok Shop is an affiliate channel, right? It's not going to change the way that everyone sees the world. This is something I was saying in 2022 when everyone said TikTok was going to kill Google. I'm like, yeah, but we have information density. You only look at one video at a time. I look at 25 blue links. I'm not so sure about that. Also, Amazon, I can see 30 products on a page. I only see one video at a time from an influencer. It's a totally different modality of information, retrieval. So it's a new mode. It's not a replacement. It's a disruptive one.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like AI is disruptive. Like I think people will fundamentally shift the way they behave using, ChatGPT before going to Google, or, like Google's done a good job of integrating their AI into their search, but they are going to lose, traditional search engines, in my opinion, are going to lose traffic to AI.
And I think we've seen some of that already. The fact that I haven't said Gemini once in this conversation, I think says a lot, but there you go. But I am very bullish on distribution wins. And I do think at the end of the day, you're going to have to solve there's some real economic issues, I think, to solve, and like who actually wins the AI race at the very, very end of it all. And like, what consumer product is the best, which one is the best integrated, which one is the one you turn to with the most ease. It's probably not the right forum to talk about it, but there's also the friction of migrating. And like, I think people have a relationship with ChatGPT. It has memory. You've been building that for a few years. I think that would be hard to give up for a lot of people and feel like a material loss. So yeah, to your point, I think it is disruptive, but I also think it's a new type of relationship and a new sort of a modality in our relationship with digital with a digital culture that we've ever had, and I think it's complementary to everything else too. But that's just my take.
Yeah. Before we hit record, I want to make sure we touch base on this. But you
Yeah.
mentioned you have two big macro predictions.
Mm.
Have we touched base on those already?
No, not yet.
Or
I mean,
okay,
they fit into what we have talked about so
yeah.
far.
So what are those big predictions that you're seeing?
Yeah. Well, we went really hard on this at the end of last year. I recorded like 3.5 hours on this over in the Future Commerce podcast. If you care to hear my voice for longer, that'd be great. We're looking at two big themes starting in 2026. And some of these I think are very obvious. One is every business is trying to automate more because everybody wants more productivity. And I think the smallest of businesses, of course, but the largest of businesses too. And so we are tracking this theme throughout the year called, it's the age of autonomy. We are starting to see autonomy play out in every part of society. And I think this will be a massive year into shift of autonomy where we see it play out in public, and it's everything. It's more Waymo. It's, more delivery bots like straight to your door in the last mile, but it's also, it's more autonomy in the automation of the service layer in business and not needing so much point solution software and things that just work. The other side of it, Eric, is the human component to everything. Is humans, they don't really have a lot of trust in institutions anymore. Edelman puts out this piece of research every year called the Trust Index, and it's at a 25-year low. So, the trust barometer is crashing right now. We don't trust institutions of any kind. And now we have tools to give us sovereignty away from those institutions for us to double check that the things that they say are true and for us to build a worldview around the things that we care about. We can now take control of our health. We can be sovereign from healthcare companies. I can, through a number of things, a number of services, I can monitor my own health. I can go get my own blood panels. I can shove it into a system. I can do lots of things now that I couldn't do 5 years ago. Now, I don't know that there's probably deleterious effects that we don't know about yet that problematic there. But that is what we're seeing is in all facets of society, we're seeing autonomy play out. We're seeing sovereignty play out. And I do believe that's powerful and it can lead to good, but we're also seeing that those things can be at odds with each other. And I have a whole host of predictions on what does that mean for brands like, Walmart wants to play a large role in autonomy so that it, achieves a better bottom line, but also wants to play into consumer sovereignty and give them more control over their healthcare choices. And that's why I believe, Walmart is going to be the primary healthcare provider for most Americans in the next 3 to 5 years. So there's a lot of things to really track here, but I think those are the two macro trends that if no matter the size of your business, those are the things that we all have to contend with.
I kind of want to get your input on this. 1400s, what is
Mhm.
that, 600 years ago?
Yeah.
The way information was dispersed was through the church. And you
Mhm.
had a few people who could scribe knowledge into books. It was very costly. Then we have the printing press, the Gutenberg printing press, invented in 1500s, sparked really a revolution among the churches. The foundation of the Protestant church could be attributed partly to the advent of the printing press.
Sure.
So then you start to communicate. Books becomes a new form of communication, right? Like for us to think about a life before books um,
Yeah.
seems so
Unthinkable.
foreign,
Right.
but it was the way it happened. And then we continue into the Industrial Revolution, and we see the advent of radio. We see the advent of telephones. We see the advent of TV. And then we move into, our lifetime. We see the advent of the internet and how communication on the internet happened through email. But I feel like what a lot of people haven't been talking about is a new form of communication, which is meme culture and
Mhm.
communicating through memes. And it really, it, like we've been viewing memes for years, but to see like the current administration utilize memes to the way that they have, kind of to me is this, it just kind of clicked with me that we're at this point
Yeah.
where you almost have to communicate through memes in a way to get your point across in the market. And I feel like brands that have leaned into meme culture
Mm,
have also stood above. It stood out. I think of like Ryanair right now is,
right. With
you
the
know, like,
Elon thing, right?
yeah, and they're, taking advantage of that, and their kind of language style, and
hmm
um, have you done any kind of research into, meme culture and communicating through memes and the effectiveness that that can be, or the risk that you can have with that style of communication?
Yeah, we actually have, and there is a sort of a breaking point in the parsability of memes because many of them aren't, they're very channel specific, like they're very community specific, very channel specific. So some things happen on Reddit, they never make escape containment. Some things happen on X, um, and so brands need to take on something we published in 2023 alongside our Vision Summit was a piece of research that uh, basically looked at how insincere brands are in certain channels and how brands adopt this sort of punchy, voice and become sort of bullies online. They, they're trying to be stand-up comics. They meme culture is part of that, but there's something else that they take on that becomes a channel specific voice. And it's no longer just like it's no longer like faceted parts of the brand. It's like fragmented parts of the brand where you have individual people who know how to communicate to specific audiences that are trying to make the brand appeal to that audience, but it's not actually the brand. It's single players in the brand who are acting on behalf of the brand, and or small teams. And what winds up happening is the challenge there is the sustainability of that and the receptivity of and the authenticity of that to the community. Does that drive more sales actually, or is it a form of entertainment? And that I think has been, goes back to what we was talking about before of like looking at things from, a P&L perspective, like is our investment here actually moving the bottom line, or can we measure it in a softer way of like cultural impact? You look at something like Duolingo. Duolingo has phenomenal cultural impact, but for all its memes, look at its stock, right? Its AI will disrupt Duolingo and we may not have that anymore. So to your point, you're making a phenomenal point, which is the shift in language and communication is something that I think we all have to contend with. A point that I've often made, and a great book for everybody to go read, is something called The Victorian Internet. It's a quick read, phenomenal book, but it talks about how in the abstract, a new modality of communication and a new infrastructure for communication, such as the advent of the printing press to then the telegraph, and then the internet. The phone and then the internet, like all the things that came thereafter, aren't really seen as legitimate new forms of media until they become commercialized and you can transact commerce on it. And along with that also happens to be other things like interpersonal relationships, community, romance. Famously, Thomas Edison was a telegraph operator who was apparently a renowned telegraph operator, and proposed to his wife by tapping on her, asked him to marry
How
her.
romantic.
Tapped on her knee and in Morse code. But this is the kind of thing that when you're looking at adapting to the new mediums, the language inherent in the medium, Marshall McLuhan would say the medium is the message, right? And so in the message it's inherent on you, and it's implied that the medium is distorting the message. You are now having to conform to the medium, and you're no longer the thing that you're purposing. And it's something we talk a lot about. Just to sort of wrap up the soliloquy here, something we talk a lot about is like, what is the truth of a brand, right? Is it the thing that you think the brand is and you're trying to communicate to your customers? Or is it something that the customers think that the brand is that they're interpreting? Or is the truth actually somewhere in between that is a shared mythology that everybody holds in the collective culture? I think it's actually the latter. I think it's actually
vibes, man.
Right. It's just vibes. Now there's a way to say it, but it is. It's no one person's vision. It's everyone's collective, collective contribution. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people, you mentioned a couple of the places to follow you. Where's the best place to follow you, to reach out to you, to interact with you, to learn from you?
Yeah. We're Future Commerce everywhere, on all the socials. But futurecommerce.com is where you can get all of our daily content and subscribe to all the stuff that we put out, insights and newsletters, podcasts, all the stuff.
Well, I enjoyed this thoroughly. It's always a good chat. We shouldn't have it every 2 years. It should be more regular than that.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that. Phillip, this has been another e-commerce Conversations. Cheers, and keep on growing.